Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV.
Hi, I am Dustin Pickering from Parrot Literary Corner. You know me, your noble and honest host, and I've got exciting news for you. Last anthology, Series 1, The Literary Parrot, did such a great job. We wanted to continue to provide this community service to our viewers and to our contributors to the program. So please get up and get a copy immediately. You know, if you're in this book, you want to get a copy. If you're not in the book, you want to get a copy and see what we're doing. You want to be excited with us. We want you on this program, and we hope to see you sometime soon on The Literary Parrot. You have to get your hands on this copy. It's amazing. It's an absolutely beautiful anthology meant just for you. Our past guests have been invited back to contribute yet again to this Series 2. We do this quarterly anthology. We will be doing this after our 200 episode milestone. As of this last quarter, we reached 200 episodes, and past that, get up and get a copy immediately. This is the only TV show on earth for creative writers, and our guests are amazing. They're also community activists building from the ground up. This program is for everybody out there who is a creative mind. Order several copies if you. Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing. Give us a shot. We will surely finish you. Hello and welcome to World Inkers Network. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host, as previously mentioned. And today is episode 250. So let's congratulate ourselves for the 250th episode. Today, our author is Amy Ferris. She is an author, editor, screenwriter, and playwright. Her screen adaptation of J. California Cooper's short story, Funny Valentines, was nominated for a Best Screenplay Award. Her screen credits include the feature Mr. Wonderful and 2 TV series, Tattingers and Jack's Place. Amy created and curated 2 anthologies, Dancing at Shame Prom and Shades of Blue, Writers on Depression and Feeling Blue. Shades of Blue went on the proverbial road, a la Vagina Monologues, hitting numerous cities and changing lives. And in 2012, Amy's memoir, Marrying George Clooney, was adapted into an off-Broadway play. So let's talk about a little bit with Amy Ferris here. So welcome to the show. Amy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Dustin. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So tell us a little bit. I'm curious, is there a major difference between writing like a play that will be produced on stage versus a screenplay?
There is, and I didn't know that there was. Writing a screenplay is a little bit more collaborative in terms, and when I say that, I mean you have producers and directors and all kinds of people coming in, and you're not necessarily going to have your work on the screen. With a play, the playwright is really the king or queen, right? So that's one of the biggest differences.
So when you say collaboration, you're collaborating with other writers? Or are you collaborating with, other minds on how this production is going to come about? When you're actually writing the screenplay versus a play to be produced on stage, how is the process different in that regard?
Well, with Mr. Wonderful, which Anthony Minghella directed that.
Mhm.
I co-authored that movie. That was a script that Vicky Polan and I co-authored. And so we would work together like every day and send notes and write and, and that kind of thing. And then once the studio got involved and once Anthony Minghella came on as the director, then there was a whole other level of collaboration, from a director's point of view and then the actor's point of view. So that, there was an enormous amount of collaboration with screenplays. With Funny Valentines, I was brought in to rewrite the original screenplay.
Okay.
And that was an interesting experience. J. California Cooper wrote the short story, and Julie Dash was brought in to direct. Julie directed Daughters of the Dust, and Alfre Woodard was involved, and Loretta Devine was already involved. And so I was brought in when they had received the original screenplay. It was nothing that they had expected, and they needed someone to come in and do a page one rewrite, which means that you kind of get rid of all of the work and start over. And so that was what I did.
Interesting. So you started like straight from scratch and just wrote a complete new script.
Yeah, I had this short story, which was absolutely gorgeous. It was part of a collection in J. California Cooper's book. And I read the short story, and I think it was like 8 pages maybe. And I came in and worked with Julie Dash, and it was wonderful. It was really, really an extraordinary experience to work with someone like Julie, who is so generous. She really is. She's an extraordinary woman.
So how do you take a narrative that's a short story and turn it into something that would actually be acted, on stage or on a screen? That's an interesting process for me. Like, because you're reading and there's going to be details that are in the story that you would be hard to write into like a script, I would think. So how does that come about?
That is a great question. In the short story, it was a story about 2 cousins, and it was very bare bones. And when I came in, I said to Julie, what if we add this element? What if we take this story and turn it into and really make it a completely different experience between the two women? And so it was kind of like having the foundation, Dustin, and then building up on that, but making sure that the entire foundation remains intact.
Right.
So, and then J. California Cooper saw the movie and loved it. She just loved it. She was so incredibly touched by how we had taken that story and turned it into something really big.
So tell us a little bit about your memoir. What is that concerning? It's an interesting title.
Marrying George Clooney? Well, it was, I was up in the middle of the night, and I was going through all of the first stages of menopause, which I don't recommend anybody go through the way I went through it. But I was up in the middle of the night, and I started Googling old boyfriends. Go figure, right? And then from there, I thought, ooh, let me keep writing a really quirky memoir about what it's like to be up in the middle of the night, dying for Ambien, needing Ambien, Googling old boyfriends. And then in the middle of writing the memoir, my mother was diagnosed with dementia. And so it went from being a very quirky, funny little book to being something that my publisher at the time said, you need to now really dig deep. And my relationship with my mother was very complicated. And for the longest time, Dustin, I thought my mother was the most powerful woman in the world. But then I realized my mother was really angry. And that I mistook all of her anger for power.
Wow.
And so I made like a real swift left turn and
Mhm.
started to write about my relationship with my mother. And at the end of my book, and I'm going to get very emotional, at the end of the book, I realized that I had become the woman that she always wanted to be.
Mhm.
And my mother was an artist, and she really basically gave up her whole life to raise 2 kids, to be married. She
Mhm.
didn't really want to have children.
Mhm.
I'm awfully glad she did. And I fell in love with her at the end of my mother's life. I fell in love
Mhm.
with who I found out who she was. And there was a moment when I was toward the end of the book, I would say, that I went to see her in the assisted living facility. I went
Mhm.
there for about 10 days. She had moved to New Mexico. We had moved her to New Mexico because my brother was there. And she's had one very, very lucid moment.
Mhm.
And she turned to me and she said, I didn't want anyone to love you. I wanted everyone to love me.
Mhm.
And that became an extraordinary moment for me because everything clicked. You know, when something all of a sudden you go, wow, I fucking get this.
Mhm.
Like I understood why she was negligent. I understood why I had such a difficult relationship with her.
Mhm.
And I went from thinking, oh my God, you know, it's so dysfunctional, to really understanding that it wasn't any different than any relationship that's complicated.
Mhm.
So that was how Marrying George Clooney really became a book.
Wow. That's fascinating. The way the creative process works and the way life kind of seized you in that period to sort of steer it a different direction. Did you find that, you know, when you writing your mother's character in the story, like, you know, as you're writing it, did you change the way language was used for the person, or did it just sort of happen naturally? Did you recall events and try to write down exactly what was
Oh,
said, or how did that happen?
you know, I think, and I'm going to ask you a few questions because we're going to go
Yeah.
back and forth here. I think when I was young, I was able to retain a lot of what made me unhappy.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I was very aware of the things that happened in my childhood, and I remembered them. And I actually remembered a lot of the things that my mother said to me because they hurt so deep.
Mm-hmm.
They were so painful.
Right.
So I was able to recall those things. I don't know if I really necessarily changed the voice of who my mother was, other than bringing her to life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I think when you're a kid, right, when you're a teenager and you're really struggling and you have a hard time, you remember moments that cause you incredible pain.
Right.
And for me, one of the greatest lessons of growing up like that is that I never wanted to do that to another person.
Right.
That
That
kind of
was
that kind of pain I never wanted to inflict on another person. And it was an emotional pain. You know, she
right.
wasn't physically abusive. She was very emotionally abusive.
Mm-hmm. So that kind of brings us a little bit into the Shades of Blue
Yeah.
anthology. That's kind of segues into this. So what brought that about, and what kind of submissions did you receive from people?
That, Dustin, and I'm gonna ask you a question right now.
Okay.
All right. So growing up, what was it like for you as a teenager growing up in Atlanta?
Well, actually, I grew up at
In
different
Texas.
places. I grew up mostly in Texas, but I spent some time in Florida with where my dad was living with my siblings, my half brothers, and it was at that period was very difficult for me because it was very lonely and isolated. I actually just wrote a poem about this called Fern Gully, which was a
Oh,
animated film back in that came out in 1992, I think,
mhm.
when I was there, and I used to watch that film. You know, my dad and his wife at the time would, you know, do whatever they were doing, and they leave us and the kids there to watch the film. And I was so lonely because I was being bullied heavily at school. I would come home to being abused by my stepmom, you know, physically and emotionally. They isolated me from my grandmother and aunt, who were basically, you know, my caregivers for most of my life. They kind of gave me the impression I shouldn't communicate to them what was going on. At least my stepmom did. They deny it to this day, but that's what happened. And I fell in love with this cartoon character because it was just so isolated and lonely that the only outlet I had for my, you know, for my need for love was this cartoon on Fern Gully. This fairy character. It wasn't even a person. It was an animated fairy that was on that cartoon. And it was so weird because, you know, I actually would have little fantasies like, you know, that I would meet this cartoon character.
So great.
I was like 12 years old, you know. And that experience I think tainted my youth very much, because when I was, you know, became kind of suicidal and desperate throughout my teen years. Like a lot of kids get kind of emo and depressed and all and angsty, and I got really bad about it. You know, and I self-mutilated. You know, there was a couple of times where I would take bottles of aspirin and things like that. So it was really rough. And then, you know, I suffered a mental health crisis when I was about 19 or 20. I had bipolar going on for a while, and then bipolar completely moved into schizoaffective bipolar.
Wow.
And those delusions like just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I went on for like 10 years fighting that. I ended up in the state hospital, Austin State Hospital, throughout for 3 months. I spent 3 months there, institutionalized, and it took me a long time to realize I was sick. It took me several years really to figure out that what I was experiencing was delusions, and the voices were not a person or an otherworldly character that I thought I was speaking to. And I think that came down to being isolated as well. And having depression and being, you know, sometimes depression is characterized by, you know, you're isolated by nature of the illness.
Yeah.
You know, that's one thing I've learned from that, is that it's just it's not something to play with. I mean, people don't understand the difference between being a little sad one day and actually actively suffering from depression, which can happen to anybody at any given time. It can hit you just out of the blue. It's a physical thing. It's not not necessarily emotional, but it affects your processing and your emotional abilities, I think, and, you know, your well-being altogether. It's a very difficult and tricky illness to deal with. And so I'm just curious, like, you know, what brought you to be interested in that issue?
Robin Williams, when he took his life.
And Robin Williams played the character Batty in that film, Fern Gully. Very strange coincidence there.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Robin Williams, when he took his life,
mm-hmm.
and I very, very often stop people from saying committing suicide, because it's not a crime.
Right.
And I feel like, so when he took his life, I decided that I needed to come out about my suicide attempt, because people were going around talking about how selfish he was.
Oh, wow.
And that he shouldn't have done that. And
right.
And I felt, wait a second, you know, we need to talk about mental illness. We need to talk about these stories. We need to talk about our depression the same way we talk about cancer, the same way we talk about diabetes, the same.
Absolutely.
And so I wrote a post, and I wrote about my trying to kill myself, trying to take my life at the age of 15.
Okay.
And I posted it on Facebook. Thousands of people responded.
Wow.
I'm not exaggerating. All of a sudden it was like I hit a nerve. But what I wrote about really, Dustin, was about depression is not something that it's not like the flu. You know,
right.
You can't just get better. You can't, you know, it's not like, okay. And my publisher, my publisher of Marrying George Clooney, actually got in touch with me, Seal Press, and said, would you consider putting this in an anthology, creating an anthology? This is because she herself suffered from depression. And I said, absolutely. And I reached out to about 45 people that I knew, not that I knew all of them, but 45 people who often wrote about depression or suicidal attempts or feeling suicidal. And every single one responded, yes, I want to write. I want to write my story. And I think there were 36 pieces in Shades of Blue. And every single one of them, Dustin, is different.
Right.
Everyone from being diagnosed with bipolar or just suffering from depression, like sad seasonal depression. And every single story. There's one piece in there that was written by Matt Ebert.
Okay.
And Matt actually jumped off a bridge.
Wow.
And a bush, an actual physical bush, is what stopped him from dying.
Wow.
So he was able to write about what it was like while he was going down and falling. And it's pretty remarkable that all of a sudden he decided that he wanted to live. And he still, to this day, I mean, Matt suffers so horrifically from depression.
Yeah.
And he has some really great days and he has some really awful weeks. But it was pretty extraordinary that he wrote about that.
It's funny that you mentioned Robin Williams, and a lot of people might even think that, oh, he's rich, he's famous, he's loved, everyone cares about him. Why would he do such a thing? That's so horrible. It's so, like you said, selfish. I can see people saying that. And what people don't often understand is those things actually complicate your life. Fame and fortune.
God.
Like you never know. I mean, what could happen to a person in a different position than you, that you may want to be in that position, but at heart, if you were to be put in that position, it's a lot more than it's worth in some ways. It must have been really stressful in general of like him in that position of where he was and what life he was living in, what moment when he decided he had to leave the world for himself, and it's terrible. I mean, it had to have been frightening for him. I mean, I've been in those places where it's like, you're writing your suicide note, and you're ready to go. And then a phone call or something happens, like a sudden, lightning flash outside or whatever it could be that just distracts you from that. We're going to take a brief break, but we're going to come right back with Amy Ferris. Enjoy this break.
Thank you.
I'm at that age where I appreciate every sunrise, sunset, and all the hours in between. The age that causes me to notice the rhythmic timing of each breath. A reminder to thank God for granting me another day. I'm at that age where joints begin to stiffen and maybe I don't move as fluently as I did at 22. But I'm also at that age where I realize many didn't even get to see today. So I pray on bent and aching knee, thank you, God, for blessing me. I'm at that age where I notice my kids making some of the same mistakes that I did. And I remind myself that although never easy, I made it through and so will they. I'm at that age where I understand that money never buys true happiness. But I'm also at that age where I understand it definitely does help to have a bit. I'm at that age where six-pack abs still attract. But I'm also at that age where the behavior of a true gentleman will stop me in my tracks. I'm at that age where I know what it means to be a woman alone with how to treat my man. Beginning with listening as he explains what he needs from me. You see, there may be many similarities, but all men are not the same. I'm at that age where I realize good things don't come to those who wait. They go to those who educate, plan, sacrifice, work, and repeat over and over and over again. I'm at that age where I appreciate spending time with family, whether we're on good terms or not. Because I'm at that age where I'm losing so many people that I care about. I'm at that age where I'm bearing down on that age where there are more chapters of my life in past instead of future tense. But I'm at that age where I refuse to give up. I continue to climb, to create, to improve, love, and share, bearing my soul to the universe while honoring my ancestors, my God, and myself, while becoming the best version of me possible, because I'm at that age.
Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing. Give us a shot. We will surely finish you. Welcome back to World Inkers Network. We're discussing things ranging from screenwriting to depression with Amy Ferris. And today is episode number 250. I want to remind any viewers out there right now that you can comment on the program while we're in the process here of having these discussions and leave us a few notes and thoughts for the program. So, Amy, do you have like a segment you'd like to read for us, maybe?
Sure. I didn't expect to. Let me get something.
Okay. You're watching World Inkers Network. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. If you're watching today, I just want to say that there is help out there for you. If you're suffering from depression, there are people who understand. We had a long discussion just a few moments ago about some of the things that people face in those very trying times. And I just want to remind everyone you are cared about, and we do care about you here at World Inkers Network and formerly Parrot TV's Literary Corner. So just remember. Welcome back again to World Inkers Network. Amy Ferris with us today on episode 250. So do you have something prepared to read for us?
I do, actually. And I'm going to ask you, do you think it would be possible for me to read someone else's?
Sure, why not?
I'd love to give Jimmy Camp a shout out.
Okay, absolutely.
And he was in Shades of Blue.
Okay.
And his piece is called A Slip of the Noose.
All right.
So I'm going to read a little bit from it.
Okay.
Sick Boy, Angel, Bobby Two-Tone, Baby Crazy, Johnny Tri-Hawk, Cutter, not their real names. Most everyone had a nickname, no last names. I was just Jimmy, still am. Most everyone had someone looking for them, good or bad. Parents, pimps, cops, brothers, dealers. No one wanted to be found. Most everyone wanted to be anonymous, invisible, lifeless, disposable. Most of us lived in hell at some point. 7021 Hollywood Boulevard. People were looking for me too, but I didn't care. Good luck. Try to find me here. Wouldn't matter anyway, just turned 18. My older brother came looking for me once, just after Thanksgiving. In his topsiders and Lacoste shirt, I'm sure. He ran into Charles somewhere on the boulevard. Charles went to high school with us. He was adopted. His mom was crazy. She took in strays for money. Foster kids, cripples. Charles was 18. No one was looking for him. I started doing drugs by accident. I was 12. I got an electric guitar for Christmas that year. I got some brown corduroy overalls and cowboy boots that year too. I got a small amplifier, cord, strap, finger ease. Finger ease was a spray you sprayed on your guitar strings, like string lube. I would lie in bed at night playing my guitar under the covers. I would spray the finger ease on the strings. I would hear helicopters. I figured out that if I sprayed the finger ease on part of my pillowcase and inhaled it, I could hear more helicopters. I figured out if I sprayed the fingertip with a sheet and inhaled it directly, I would hear cooler helicopters. I figured out it worked with any aerosol can. I didn't learn it from anyone. Didn't see it on ABC or an after-school special. Sometimes I would play guitar on the boulevard, enough money to buy a 40, some food. Food was easy to get. You could listen to a greasy-haired Ike Turner look-alike motherfucker dressed like a priest yell at you for 45 minutes and then get a free English muffin, topped with chili and cheese. You can go to McDonald's just after it closed and wait by the dumpster. This was when AIDS was still gay cancer. We weren't gay. No worries. A slip of the noose. I used to be a little boy, a baby at first. I was the good one. My mom would come into my room in the morning, and I would be lying there in my crib wide awake and happy as could be. Didn't cry much. I had curly brown hair and deep chocolate eyes. I was born on my mother's birthday, her favorite sweet, until I wasn't. No reason. How did that make you feel? I don't know. So eventually, I became lonely.
That's incredibly written. It deals with a lot of the emotional ambiguities of being depressed and having the world around you kind of not really fit that mold so much. Because I mean, he has a guitar, and he gives the guitar when he's 12, and he's on drugs, and then they have the whatever emotional turmoil going on, and there's so much there that identifies some of the sources, and the entire thing is very emotive, and it's really thoughtful and interesting how he presented that.
And it goes on, but I wanted to give you a little bit of Jimmy Camp, because Jimmy went on to become a campaign manager, political campaign manager.
Okay.
And he talks all the time about how when he was growing up, that he could barely get out of bed.
Yeah.
And I think about all of us, you and me, Dustin, and other massive amount of people out there in the world who are doing such incredible stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it is because we struggle with our own, with our own battles, right? And our own demons, and we share those. And that's what makes us very compassionate and empathetic, and also helps other people.
Absolutely. I think that act of opening up and revealing yourself and being vulnerable lets other people feel comfortable as well. It makes people feel like they can also be open and honest and vulnerable. And if we had a humanity that wasn't so scared of vulnerability, we may have a more compassionate humanity that recognizes vulnerability as part of being human.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it any better. That is really beautiful.
Well,
and being vulnerable is also what makes us really good, talented people.
Right. Definitely as artists and as people, I think it can make you a better mother. It can make you a better father. It can make you a better brother and sister, a friend. I mean, I don't know how many times you open up to somebody about something really, really negative going on in your life. You have so many turmoils, and someone says, well, I've got a hangnail or something, just, and it's like, I wasn't talking, you come to somebody sometimes and they do that, and it's frustrating, it's like they want to over talk you and beat you at your sadness or something.
They do. They want to compete with your sadness. That's it. Yeah. You're competing with that. And I think what you just said about, I have a hangnail, I think it's really a lot to do with that people have a lot of shame around depression.
Yeah.
You know, they have a lot of shame around being imperfect and, you know, thinking, oh, I don't want to share that with anybody. I can tell you that when I wrote about my own suicide attempt, when I wrote about that, and everything in my life changed because it was no longer in my body, that story. It was also out in the world. And I think that I'm a very big believer that we need to share those stories that are in our bodies that we're really afraid to talk about because we think people are going to judge us or think, oh, really, you suffer from depression. How can you suffer? Well, you know, depression doesn't discriminate.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't discriminate.
Probably a lot more common even than it's diagnosed. And a lot of people are probably ashamed to go to a therapist and talk it out. And, you know, that's why we need a lot of therapists out there and psychologists when we sit down and you talk about and hash these things out and try to come up with strategies and coping abilities to work through these problems, you know. And it's really not something you can do alone. And it's not advisable to struggle alone with something like that.
You know, and here you are doing your work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get to talk to people all the time and do interviews and find out about everyone's life. And then you get to share bits and pieces of yourself, which actually gives other people the courage. You know, it's like you're talking to me earlier about going through your childhood makes it easier too for me to talk about it,
Right.
you know, on air and say, yes, I went through this. Yes. I mean, it's different to put it down on a page than to actually
Speak it.
Yeah, it's different.
So what would your last final word be for our viewers today?
My last final words would be brave.
Absolutely.
Open, carry your life.
Oh, I love it. I love it. That should be a slogan.
Yes, it should. Justin,
Open, carry your life.
open, carry your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And do you want to say any thank yous or give any shout outs to anybody that?
I want to give a shout out to my husband.
Okay.
And because he's such a good guy, I want to give a shout out to you and your producer who invited me onto the show. Thank you so much. And I also really want to give a shout out to my partner at Story Summit, my 2 Story Summit partners, David Kirkpatrick and Deborah Engel.
Okay. Well, if you know anybody else that you think would like to be interviewed, or talk about any number of things, just send them my way. You know, Literary Corner, NewYorkParrot.com, where you found me. I'd love to interview just about anybody out there doing creative work. So,
I would love to do that, Justin. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. It was pleasant. I mean, as pleasant as it can be, it's relieving actually to talk about, you know, things that are really the deep in the nitty gritty of life. You know, it's hard to talk about those things, and we need to have those conversations. And thank you guys out there viewing today, World Inkers Network, episode number 250. We had Amy Ferris. If you missed the program, you can go back on our YouTube and watch it some more from the very beginning. It's a very deep and thought-provoking conversation. And by the way, you can subscribe to the channel while you're there. Like, share, and comment on our wonderful content. And if you would like to donate to our program, we definitely could use the funds. There it is right there, paypal.me/nyparrot. That's through PayPal, paypal.me/nyparrot. You can donate anything you would like to spare. If you like what we're doing and you want to see us continue to thrive, we'd love to hear from you on the PayPal. If you'd like to be on the program as a guest, you can be any kind of creative mind, a writer of any kind, a musician, or a spoken word performer. We'd love to see you on the program. Literary Corner at NewYorkParrot.com. You'll see that scrolling down there at the bottom of the feed there at the banner. Send a bio and sample and a headshot of to Literary Corner at NewYorkParrot.com. I love to talking with Amy Ferris today about the various problematics of depression and getting the word out about that. So just remember, you're valid and you're wanted in the world, so stay with us. And if you haven't been writing today, get to writing now. Have a lovely afternoon. Hi, I am Dustin Pickering from Parrot Literary Corner. You know me, your noble and honest host, and I've got exciting news for you. Last anthology, Series 1, The Literary Parrot, did such a great job. We want to continue to provide this community service to our viewers and to our contributors to the program. So please get up and get a copy immediately. You know, if you're in this book, you want to get a copy. If you're not in the book, you want to get a copy and see what we're doing. You want to be excited with us. We want you on this program, and we hope to see you sometime soon on The Literary Parrot. Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing. Give us